Government pushes small medium enterprises export to European market. Back to another dispute, Telkom complains Netflix over large bandwidth needs. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from the business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Wicky Adrian, and this is Market Headlines. To embrace recession in the end of September, government pushes small medium enterprises to take advantages from export potential markets, especially European market.
The government, through the Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs, pushes small and medium enterprises to take advantage of export opportunities, especially to European markets, which are increasingly open in the midst of pandemic. And for that, the Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs continues to improve product quality of SMEs to be able to compete in the global market, especially in European markets.
Kami sekarang mendorong UKM, khususnya yang untuk ekspor melalui inkubasi-inkubasi yang terkoneksi dengan ekosistem, apakah itu pembiayaan, teknologi, dan pemasaran, sehingga UKM benar-benar siap masuk di pasar global, termasuk di pasar Eropa. Dari data BPS yang kami dapatkan, bahwa ekspor Indonesia ke negara-negara Uni Eropa itu masih rendah, sekitar 14,6 miliar US dollar, jika dibandingkan dengan negara-negara APEC itu sebesar 122 miliar US dollar, ASEAN itu sebesar 41,4 miliar US dollar, dan NAFTA sebesar 19,6 miliar.
Meanwhile, Indonesia's biggest export to European Union's country is to Netherlands, with a value of 3.2 billion US dollar. Germany, 2.4 billion US dollar. Italy, for 1.74 billion US dollar, up to Spain for 1.59 billion US dollars. Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs stated that the state-owned enterprises' role in here is important as an off-taker. She also stated that on SMEs digitalizations is a must and completed with their good promotions inside and outside the country. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
Seaplane base may not be as popular as airport in Indonesia. The good news is Ministry of Transportation is about to build 5 seaplane airports in Indonesia in the near time.
A seaplane base is a type of airport that is located in a body of water, usually a river, bay, even lake, where seaplanes and amphibious aircraft take off. As a country that has more water than land, seaplane base is really important. Director General of Air Transportations of the Ministry of Transportations, Novi Rianto, said that at least 5 seaplane base will be built in the near future.
Jadi kita juga membangun 5 bandar udara untuk wisata, khususnya adalah wisata di daerah perairan, atau yang kita kenal dengan seaplane atau airport, tetapi yang ada di perairan. Karena sebagian besar wilayah Indonesia adalah perairan, jadi pengembangan seaplane ini juga menjadi fokus kita.
Until now, the Ministry of Transportation has conducted a feasibility study in 10 locations that are strong candidates for the constructions of seaplane base, namely Senua Island, Riau Islands, Gili Iang Island, Lake Toba in North Sumatra, and Derawan Burau in East Kalimantan. From Jakarta, Ikan Wardi for IDX Channel.
On the other hand, Indonesia Chamber of Commerce formally welcomed government's plan to develop seaplane base. Chamber expected government will build seaplane base in anti-mainstream area so that it can boost tourism sector.
Business actors who are member of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce appreciate and support the government's plan to build 5 seaplane bays. The existence of these seaplane bays can trigger tourist arrivals so it can grow regional and national economy. Vice Chairman of Chamber of Commerce of Industry of Eastern Indonesia area, Andi Rukman Karumpa, stated that out of 10 potential locations for development, he hopes that the government can focus in anti-mainstream area.
Namun kalau bisa kami mengusulkan agar pemerintah juga membidik beberapa lokasi destinasi yang belum mainstream untuk dibangun waterbase ini supaya terjadi pemerataan pertumbuhan ekonomi. Dan kalau ini terwujud, saya punya keyakinan akan kita cepat bangkit dalam rangka menambah pertumbuhan ekonomi kita.
Andi added that the government is also expected to be able to invite private sectors, especially entrepreneurs in the construction sectors, so that the seaplane-based constructions project can absorb local workers. Jakarta, Wicky Adrian for IDX Channel.
The government continues to strive the availability of COVID-19 vaccine through international cooperation. According to Indonesian Foreign Minister, or through bilateral cooperation, Indonesia has promised 20 to 30 million doses of vaccine by the end of 2020.
Speaking about bilateral relation, Indonesia will obtain COVID-19 vaccine through bilateral cooperations with China, and the provider is Sinovac, Chinese pharmacy company. So far, the company has committed to provide around 20 to 30 million doses of vaccine by the end of 2020. Even better, while in 2021, Sinovac will provide 290 to 340 million doses of the vaccine. Indonesia Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi stated that currently the vaccine from Sinovac is being tested in South Korea and will be tested in Indonesia sooner. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Market headlines will be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Saat ini lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan informasi mengenai perkembangan ekonomi dan bisnis di Indonesia dengan aplikasi IDX Channel. Mulai dari berita, makro dan mikroekonomi, politik hingga hiburan. Anda juga dapat berbagi artikel, foto, dan video ke semua platform media sosial yang Anda miliki. Beragam informasi hari ini bisa di-download di dalam aplikasi idxchannel.com. IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business, and Capital Market Channel.
Welcome back. Amid the pressure of COVID-19 pandemic, the domestic cigarette industry is now haunted by other pressures coming from an increase in excise rates, where the government has declared to raise cigarette excise rates in 2021.
The performance of the cigarette industry is under heavy pressure after COVID-19 pandemic has reduced public consumption. The pressure will be heavier if the government increases cigarette excise rates next year. The Association of Indonesian Cigarette Manufacturers, or GAPRI, estimates that cigarette production will drop by 30 to 40% this year. GAPRI Secretary General Willem Petrus said that the corona pandemic contributed 19% to the weakening performance of the cigarette industry. Then the excise policy dragged sales down by 11%, where in early 2020, the government raised the tobacco product excise rate by 23% and the retail selling price by 35%. As for next year, it is planned that the excise revenue target will increase by 4.71% to 172.75 trillion rupiah. Seeing these various pressures, Willem said that cigarette excise rate doesn't need to increase again, especially because of unstable performance in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. He even advised the government to increase state revenue through extensification of custom goods. Meanwhile, the Fiscal Policy Office of the Ministry of Finance stated that the increase in the target for cigarette excise revenue next year is to cover the rising budget deficit amid the corona pandemic. The government cannot cover expenditures by only tax revenue because the business sector is also weakening. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Yeah, the domestic cigarette industry is anxious about the government's decision to raise cigarette excise rates, which are said to be announced in the late September or early October. And yes, a number of opinions have been conveyed, especially requests from the industry players for the government to postpone the decision. Before we go further, let's see the actual cigarette excise rate in the first graphic. This is percentage of Indonesia's cigarette excise. In 2015, as much as 8.72%. In 2016, the cigarette excise in Indonesia implemented as much as 11.19%. Meantime, in 2017, 10.54%. 2019, 10.04%. The same percentage is implemented in, or was implemented in 2019, 10.04%. But in 2020, the percentage of excise increased significantly to 23%. Based on the data, the government has increased cigarette excise rates by more than 50% in the last 6 years and will even increase it again in 2021. And regarding to plan to increase excise rates, it's in line with the increase in the cigarette excise revenue target in 2021, where the Fiscal Policy Agency stated that the increase in the cigarette excise revenue target next year is to cover the rising budget deficit amid the corona pandemic. And increasing cigarette excise is one of the strategy to reduce the deficit, because so far it has contributed more than 90% of excise revenue. And of course, because the government cannot rely solely on tax revenue. Meanwhile, the government said that this policy also considers efforts to control cigarette consumption, where the government targets to reduce the prevalence of smokers aged 18 years and under to 8.7% by 2024. So with the government's high expectations on cigarette excise, how much has cigarette excise contributed to state revenue so far? The data is on the next graphic. This is the contribution of cigarette excise to state revenue in 2015, as much as 139 trillion rupiah. The trend keeps on increasing from 138 trillion rupiah in 2016 to 164.94 trillion rupiah. It is predicted to reach that level by the end of 2020. Meantime, in 2019, as much as 164.8 trillion rupiah. The Tax Research Institute, DDTC, predicts that this year's tobacco excise revenue will not reach the target. It will stuck in the range of 99.2%, or a potential shortfall by 1.37 trillion rupiah, or only reach 163.6 trillion rupiah. Several things have caused the excise revenue target not to be achieved this year, namely the complex structure of tariffs and tobacco products, as well as the increase in excise rates and erratic retail prices. Meanwhile, in the 2021 state budget draft, the revenue from tobacco excise is targeted to increase by 172 trillion rupiah. And viewers, with such contribution to the state revenue, how big is domestic tobacco production annual? Let's move to the next graphic. This is the domestic tobacco production. In 2015, it was contributed a lot compared to another year in 2015, as much as 193,790 tons. But it was keep showing fluctuative trend. In 2019, it was contributed as much as 197,120 tons. But in 2020, it is predicted to produce 185,000 tons. And regarding the impact of higher excise rates, the lower absorption or production of tobacco is also said to be inevitable. Besides that, another impact is higher cigarette prices, which threatens the existence of the industry itself. Therefore, tobacco farmers urge the government to reconsider the plan to increase cigarette excise. The farmer asked the government not to make policies that would worsen the industrial situation. Apart from affecting tobacco farmers, the biggest impact is, of course, on labor absorption. As we know, this industry is one of the labor-intensive industries in Indonesia. To find out more clearly, we're going to see the next graphic. This is the absorption of workers in the cigarette industry in Indonesia. The manufacturing and the distribution, it was absorbed as much as 4.28 million workers or people. Minsam for plantation is absorbed as much as 1.7 million people. So in total, the cigarette industry in Indonesia absorbed as much as 5.98 million people. We compiled the data from the Ministry of Industry and IDX Channel research. The Indonesian Tobacco Community Alliance stated that the tobacco industry is experiencing various pressures that would impact the survival of 5 million workers, where the pressure not only from COVID-19 pandemic, but also came from the government plan to increase the excise rate for cigarette or tobacco products, while in fact, the sector has a vital role in the economy and development. According to the Ministry of Manpower, the majority of workers in this industry are women of productive age with low educational strata, where many of them are the backbone of the family. You can imagine what if the pressure after pressure on this industry, including the increase of excise, led to an adjustment in the number of workers, or in other words, layoffs. Therefore, in response to the excise policy, the Ministry of Manpower reminded that it must be decided carefully, considering the impact, which is a domino impact. And yes, viewers, hopefully the policy that will be set later will consider the current conditions and situation, and of course, good for all stakeholders. And stay tuned for Market Headlines, because we'll be right back after the break.
Adikarya, komitmennya kemanapun dan apapun yang akan dibangun oleh negara, kita akan siap mendukung. Kita juga saat ini punya proyek di ujung Banda Aceh dan juga punya proyek di Papua.
Saat ini lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan informasi mengenai perkembangan ekonomi dan bisnis di Indonesia dengan aplikasi IDX Channel. Mulai dari berita, makro dan mikroekonomi, politik hingga hiburan. Anda juga dapat berbagi artikel, foto, dan video ke semua platform media sosial yang Anda miliki. Beragam informasi hari ini bisa di-download di dalam aplikasi idxchannel.com. IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business, and Capital Market Channel.
Welcome back. We're in the last segment. Now we're going to see the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. Earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 4,876.35. And then approaching the closing time on the first session, the index was on the level of 4,840.7. Then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session closing time. Index was closed at the level of 4,842.76. In short, JCI went down 1.53%. And we're going to see the sectoral movement leading the dynamics of today's trading. We got agriculture as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 2.84%. Mining went down 1.99%. Infrastructure went down 1.88%. And consumer goods went down 1.66%. And we are moving on to the top gainers and the top losers for today's trading. Here are the key highlights from today's trading session. Deal went up 13.48%. to the level of 160 per share. Fire went up 23.46% to the level of 200 per share. JSMR went up 1.88% to the level of 3,250 per share. And Cent went up to 10% to the level of 143 per share. Meantime, the top loser for today's trading, BBRI went down 1.62% to the level of 3,030 rupiah per share. BMRI went down 2.4% to the level of 5,075 rupiah per share. BBNI went down 2.04% to the level of 4,330 rupiah per share. And Telkom or TLKM went down 2.5% to the level of 2,730 rupiah per share. And this is the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Opened at the level of 14,949 rupiah was also showing a weakening trend towards US dollar. I was close at the level of 14,936. In summary, rupiah went down 0.97%. Telkom and Netflix is back to another dispute. Vice President for Corporate Communication of Telkom, Arif Prabowo, criticized the high bandwidth requirement for streaming content on the Netflix video, which has dominated the traffic.
Growing number of Netflix subscribers is hand in hand with increasing bandwidth. This is because streaming video content requires large bandwidth. Hence, this is the beginning of Telkom's critique over Netflix. Vice President for Corporate Communication of Telkom, Arif Prabowo, said that Netflix requires extra large bandwidth that keeps growing so that it dominates traffic. This will lead into Telkom's customer inconvenience, while customers' convenience is an essential part of company's focus. And to solve this problem, Telkom asked Netflix to place its content in Indonesia through Telkom Group's content delivery network service, which is spread across various locations in the country. From all sources for IDX Channel.
Palm oil company Cisade Sawit Raya booked positive performance throughout first semester of 2020. This can be seen through skyrocketed net profit.
Listed company Cisadane Sawit Raya booked a high net profit in the first semester of 2020. The company recorded net profit of 43.04 billion rupiah. The number went up 871% from the same period of last year, which was only 4.43 billion rupiah. The net profit increased hand in hand with the company's sales performance in the first half of 2020. Company recorded 273 billion sales, which was 22.3% higher than the sales in semester of 2019. Saman Senjaja, as the President Director of Cisadane Sawit Raya, stated that company's profit in the first half was supported by inclining average price of palm oil. Therefore, by this year, company aims for 62,000 tons of CPO with a target sales of 600 billion rupiah. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Based on lower sales realization in the first half of 2020, poultry company Malindo Feed Mill sets a moderate revenue target in 2020. Melindo Feed Mill Director Lo Jua revealed that the drastic decline in demand for chicken meat in the first quarter of 2020 triggered a correction in the company's revenue by around 12%. In the same quarter, accumulatively, in the first half of 2020, the company's net sales declined by 17.57% year-on-year. Meanwhile, regarding the market potential in the second half, the director said that demand for chicken meat was recovering along with the relaxation of large-scale social restrictions. In addition to demand growth, the company will also seek to meet this year's financial performance target by launching 2 new products in the second semester of 2020. And step aside from market condition as coronavirus pandemic takes big role on current economic situation. And here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening.
Baik saja tidak cukup, kita harus betul-betul memahami lingkungan bisnis global yang lebih baik, plus di dalam negerinya sosiologi dan antropologi supaya totalitas kita membantu petani